Alright, hello people from the internet, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, it's Ninesider here with another YouTube original content. We are going to be doing an overview of Transmutations today because it was asked by my community on my Discord. So yeah, if you're interested in joining the Discord, I guess there will be a link in my stream chat every now and then. There's also a link in my Twitch profile if you really want to. Yeah, I feel like putting that kind of thing just like one step away from YouTube is like enough of a gatekeep to people to keep people that actually like don't really care too much away, you know, and that's kind of what I want. But anyway, today we're doing transmutations, as I mentioned earlier. Something that I have to tell you before starting is that you should speed up the video because I know that my English is it's pretty good, but I speak kind of slowly. So you're probably better off speeding it up to 1.5 or maybe even 2.0. I listen to myself at 2.0 speed um, whenever I have to listen to myself for one reason or another. But anyway, transmutations deal with changing shapes. Many transmutations involve changing your own form, but the school also contains spells to cause changes in your enemies. Form-changing spells will last longer with higher spell power, in addition to form-specific perks that might scale with power. And you know the other thing. This second paragraph is shared among all schools, so yeah, you know what it is. Anyway, transmutations, as the school says, well, it's something that either enhances you or nerfs your opponents in one way or another by messing with their bodies. So yeah, pretty good school. Can definitely be a hard carry school. So the first spell that we are gonna be checking in that school is gonna be it's gonna be hold on, spell beastly. Yeah, beastly appendage is the spell. First spell in the school, level 1 transmutation. Beastly Appendage causes monstrous horns and talons to grow from the caster's body, granting them a chance of making an extra attack in melee. It's not powerful enough to enhance appendages that are already non-human. While transformed, the auxiliary armor on the affected body parts is melted. Okay, so this spell has gone through a couple of iterations. I got to try it when it was first released, and it could give you claws. So it was pretty dumb back then because you would just cast it until you got claws, and then you would just recast it every like 10 turns or so. So you never lost the claws. Which was obviously super broken. It was reverted after like a day, but it no longer does that. After that, it was changed so that it gave you one random body part mutation that was not claws, but that was weak. So now it gives you both horns and talons instead of just giving you one. It doesn't melt anything. So if you are like already fully equipped, I don't think it does anything, but I'm not sure. No, never mind. That was changed as well. Yeah, while transform auxiliary armor on the affected body parts is melted. Sorry for that. But yeah, in that case, it does get melted. The reason that I don't know is that I never use this. Yeah, I never use this spell. It is a spell that at the end of the day it's a level 1 spell, so you very rarely go out of your way to get a level 1 spell that's not on like your starting character or as part of your starting kit. And I don't like transmitters very much. I think of them as really, really weak. One of the weakest starts in the entirety of the game, actually. So that's why I almost never use Beastly Appendage. And even then, I don't get it because it's just not a good spell. Once you like, if you find it on like D4 or D5, it's probably not gonna be something that you're gonna be interested in. Just because it's a spell that enhances your melee. Like it's also not powerful enough to be worth using, in my opinion. It is something that you're unfortunately gonna be forced to use if you want to start a transmuter, but on any other character, I wouldn't see myself using this one. It's just how it is. Next on our list, we have Passwall. which I have already talked about. If you're seeing this, is because I started a tutorial character just to be able to show these things. It's not right now. I don't have any character ongoing as of the time of this recording. So yeah, you're gonna be seeing this a lot on any spell moving forward. With this specific instance of the series. We have Passwall. Passwall turns the caster's body such that it can instantly pass through solid rock. It takes some time for the caster to attune to the rock, during which they will be helpless. As you can see, it's level 2. Transmutation Earth. I've already talked about this one in the Earth Magic overview, but I reiterate that it is kind of okay. It is definitely a super panic button spell that has some uses, such as stabbing monsters that are like next to or like on the other side of a wall. Sorry for that. And you know that they are there and they are asleep. And since you get like a free action after casting Passwall, you can just stab them like that. This is known as Passwall stabbing, and I've never, ever, ever done it. But it can be done. Yeah. But more often than not, people use it in the off run as an escape option, just to not have to deal with leeches or fiends and stuff. If you're at full HP, you can probably tank whatever a fiend throws at you if it's alone for like 3 turns, and you should theoretically be okay. And then you can just like run for your life. It can definitely be a nice thing to have Passwall. Mm. I think I also mentioned it in the Earth Magic overview, but if it saves you at least once, it is a good investment. Yeah, if it saves you at least once, it was worth it. And even if you don't get to use it, the option of being able to use it is also really good. Anyway, if you want to hear more about it, you can look at the Earth Magic overview. I put timestamps so you can actually click on the spell that you feel about listening me talk about, and then you will be able to get the knowledge that you want. Anyway, next on our list we have what is it called? Wereblood. Wereblood transforms some of the caster's blood into that of a werebeast, causing them to occasionally howl uncontrollably. While active, each non-summoned enemy the caster slays in combat temporarily enhances their melee and ranged effectiveness, and killing adjacent enemies also provides minor healing. The bonus only lasts for the duration of a single cast. Retransforming the caster's blood calms the were spirit and reset the bonus. So this is a pretty good spell. Yeah, this is pretty good because slaying is good. It is also a spell that I always forget to use. Even on characters that would be interested in slaying, I just never cast it. But there's some people that cast it every combat, and yeah, it's quite powerful for that purpose of casting it every combat. Sorry. As for myself, I very rarely use this one, as I mentioned earlier. Even when I get it, I will frequently forget to use it. So yeah, I cannot really provide you a lot of info on this one, but it is theoretically good. It can get even better if you're using something like a quick blade. If you're a Wujian or Uskoyok worshipper with Wereblood and Heavenly Storm, and you just amass ridiculously high amounts of slaying for you to use on a quick blade, and you just like launch at an orb of fire with Serpent Slash and just one shot it. That kind of thing is pretty good. You don't even have to be a short blades user to take advantage of this as well, because it's a slaying. Pretty much everything benefits from slaying. It's just that some specific combos benefit from slaying a lot more than some others. Yeah. So yeah, Wereblood, kind of good indeed. Has my seal of approval has my seal of approval even if I always forget to use it. Yeah. By the way, I don't know if it's obvious, but I do these in one take. I don't do anything or anything. I just prefer to deliver the whole unfiltered experience, kind of how I do in my streams. Next on our list, we have Spider Form. Spider Form transforms the caster into a venomous spider-like creature. The caster becomes highly evasive and gains a poisonous bite. but gains vulnerability to poison. Okay, so this is another spell that I do not use. It's pretty much what I said about Beastly Appendage. It applies for Spider Form. The exact same that I said about Beastly Appendage applies for Spider Form. I don't like it. It's not something that I get on characters that don't start with it, and it only is a part of the transmuter start. So as a result, I very rarely will use this spell. I think it is, just as I mentioned about Beastly Appendage, an unfortunate necessity when it comes to being a transmuter. In my opinion, that background is like actually one of the worst in the game since Sticks to Snakes was removed, and in my opinion, it needs a very significant rework in order to not be in a rough spot. But that's just my opinion. You can give it a try yourself and form your own opinion. In fact, I very much recommend you to do that. So, way back in the day, Spider Form also used to give you faster movement speed and clinging to walls, so you could theoretically traverse deep water if there were if there were walls you could cling to. You could also cast it as a Gito swiftness, pretty much, to run away from things. Of course, it doesn't have those uses anymore, and now it's only like a combat buff, like most of the Transmutations schools spells. Yeah, most of them are just combat buffs or ways to nerf your opponent, or utility spells very rarely, such as Passwall. So yeah, if you start as a transmitter, I guess you have to use this. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't get it on anything that is not a transmitter. Let's just say that if I was playing a character, like any character, and I found a book with this, I would completely ignore it. Yeah, I would completely ignore it. That's just how it is. Next on our list, we have Alistair's Intoxication. Yep. Alistair's intoxication converts a small portion of the brain matter of those around you into alcohol, attempting to confuse all intelligent creatures within view, although poison-resistant creatures may resist the effects. The caster will experience vertigo briefly if they successfully make contact with other minds. It is frequently used as an icebreaker at wizard parties. It is level 5, transmutation poison. For some reason, it's level 5. I feel like it shouldn't be level 5. This is yet another spell that I very rarely use. It has it's a spell power, like its chance to succeed depends on spell power. And it caps at like 73% or something, so it can never be 100% chance to confuse. I don't like this spell that much personally. It's also a spell that I don't think I've ever cast. And let me tell you that I have been saying that a lot about transmutation spells, but don't worry. We are about to get to the ones that I actually like a lot and to the ones that I've actually used a lot with a lot of my characters. If you have been watching the stream, if you have been watching the YouTube, you already know what spells I'm talking about, but we are getting there. Alistair's Intoxication, however, is not one of those. Not even when I have a Transmutation and Poison. Like, I can have the skill to cast Noxious Bog, which is a spell that I like a lot, and there is also Transmutation Poison, and I don't get this. That's how much I don't care about this spell. But then again, I feel like I'm gonna be mentioning this in every instance of the overviews. It may depend on my personal playstyle. Maybe you want to cast Alistair's Intoxication and feel like it's the greatest spell that's ever been, but that may also mean that your playstyle differs greatly from mine. Always important to keep that kind of thing in mind. So yeah. Next on our list, we are going to be checking Ice Form. There's a lot of very early game spells in transmutations that I don't use. Ice Form is, I actually like looked them up in the wrong order because I thought that Alistair's Intoxication was level 5. That was level 4 as well, but it turned out to be level 5. That just shows how little I use it or care for it. Regardless, Ice Form. transforms the caster into a frozen ice creature. Light enough to float on water. The caster gains a freezing melee attack and becomes incredibly resistant to cold and resistant to poison but weak to fire. High power increases the armor granted by this form. Alright, while transformed, any equipped weapons and armor all melted. So pretty much the same line of text that we're gonna see in all of these forms. It also appeared in spider form. And Ice Form is a really, really okay spell. I think it also starts, like Transmitter also starts with Ice Form. Can be okay for going into an ice cave if you don't have good armor. It does give you a teeny tiny bit of extra HP and also like close to immunity to cold damage. So really good for ice caves. Um, it is also another spell that I don't have that much experience with, but I have used this one before. So I have had a generally positive opinion of this spell whenever I have used it, but then again, I don't really go out of my way to get this one. Very rarely will I say, oh, Ice Form is the thing that I need with this character. However, it does always make me feel like a genius when I'm like, oh, this character can get Ice Form and cast Ice Form to do this Ice Cave. I think it's only happened once. I've been playing for 11 years, and I don't think it's happened more than once. But that one time that it happened, it was pretty cool. So yeah, I like that kind of feeling in video games in general. Regardless size form, pretty okay, pretty okay. It can also be actually worth going into it, even if you don't start as a transmitter. So yeah, ice form. Next on our list we have. We have Ignite Poison. Yeah, another spell that I didn't get in the right order. It's okay. The list is not in order by spell levels, but it's fine. Ignite Poison converts all nearby poison into liquid flame, burning poison creatures from within. It also turns clouds of poison and mephitic gases into flame. The caster is not affected directly. So this is a really powerful spell. This is one of the transmutation spells that I will almost always use on any character that I find it on, as long as that character wants to be casting spells, of course. It is very cheap to get, being only level 3. Sure, it's 3 school, but it's only level 3. And it hits the entirety of the screen as long as you have Toxic Radiance. And it also does massive amounts of damage that scale with spell power, of course. So you may want to get a lot of spell power for this one. It also scales with the amount of poison that the monsters are being affected by. So generally wait until the monster is either very hurt and very poisoned or just like extremely poisoned to go for the Ignite Poison. Because if you Ignite Poison every turn while monsters are poisoned, like say you cast Toxic Radiance and then you cast Ignite Poison every turn after you cast Toxic Radiance until the Toxic Radiance wears off, you're probably not going to deal nearly as much damage as you would just by waiting for the Toxic Radiance to wear off, or even like casting it twice or thrice, getting everything to be extremely poisoned and like moderately wounded from the poison, and then just casting Ignite Poison and one-shotting the entirety of the screen like that. Very effective against Jax, very effective against Death Jax, even although less so because Death Jax have more HP than normal Jax. Very good against Blink Frogs, very good against Orcs, very good against many denizens of Lair branches, such as Merfolk from the Shoals. Well, I guess it's just good against everything you can poison. Yeah, like it depends on what tools you have. Because I can say that it's good against Hydras, and you may think, but Hydras are poison resistant. But here's the thing: you can poison Hydras. You can poison Hydras super reliably with one of the spells that I will be discussing later on. But if you have that one, that's like the only way for Ignite Poison to be really good against Hydras. Otherwise, it won't be that good. But yeah, anyway, Ignite Poison, MVP, like one of the best spells in the game. It is really, really that good. It actually, you could take this to SOT with the proper ways to poison enemies, and it will actually just get you a win because most Draconians are not poison resistant. Some dragons are not poison resistant. Quicksilver dragons, Storm dragons are not poison resistant. So yeah, it's just like that good. It's crazy how much utility such a lowly level 3 spell has compared to the other spells that we have seen, because they're at best the spells that I have talked about right now. They've been like, yeah, they're okay. This one, no, this one is actually incredible. One of my favorite spells in the entirety of the game due to its just a straight up raw firepower. It is insanely good. But I feel like I've already ranted about Ignite Poison a lot. It's just good. Next on our list um, we have Petrify next on our list. Petrify is another transmutation earth spell. This one is level 4 and it petrifies a target creature. Who would have guessed? If successful, the target is slowed down for a while until it's temporarily turned into stone. In this state, the target will take less damage upon being hit. I think the way that the damage reduction works is that it just like reduces the damage instead of just adding armor class or something along those lines. So this leaves the target vulnerable enough to get like the highest tier of staff that you can get, pretty much, where every staff will be guaranteed and you will get a bit of extra damage. Not as much damage as from something like, for example, Ensorcelled Hibernation or just good old Paralysis, because Petrify does reduce the damage that the monsters take, but still, it might be good enough to just kill things in like 2 or 3 staffs, given that you have enough skill to be able to stab, of course. You probably shouldn't try to staff monsters with Petrify if you don't have stealth or short blades. So yeah. This also has utility by petrifying a monster that can be dangerous to you and just running away from it. That's pretty good as well. You can block corridors using Petrify. Just petrify the monster that's in front and just make a run for it. And then you're free. That's a good way to save consumables. You can also petrify monsters that, you can also petrify monsters and then LRD them or shatter them. I've already talked about this spell in the Earth Magic overview, I think, but I'm not so against it. More often than not, I actually do bother to get this one whenever I get statue form. It's not like 100% chance that I will get it every time that I get statue form, even if I do have access to being able to learn the spell, but I will also not feel too bad about getting it when I do go for statue form. I won't feel like it's a waste of spell slots, because it can be kind of okay. It does scale with spell power, like many of the transmutation spells. I don't think I mentioned it at the beginning, but this spell, or this school, for some reason, really wants you to have high spell power on some spells. In Petrify being one of those, Ignite Poison, Irradiate also increases the damage a lot. Yeah, lots of spells that I haven't talked about yet, but I will be talking about soon. Anyway, not much else to say. I feel like I said more about Petrify in the Earth Magic overview. If you want to, you can always check that one out. And yeah, it just has my seal of approval, even if I don't use it a lot. Next on our list, we have Blade Hands. Hold on. Spells. Blade Hands. Blade Hands causes long side-shaped hands, long side-shaped blades to grow from the caster's hands, increasing melee damage significantly. While transformed, equipped weapons, shields, and gloves are melted, and casting spells become somewhat more difficult. This is one of the first transmutation-only spells that you can just win the game using this. If you're a demigod, you can go for the classic of just going Blade Hands on armed combat with your gargantuan strength from being a demigod and just casting in plate because you have also gargantuan intelligence from being a demigod. So that's kind of like a strength intelligence build where you're using heavy armor. I say plate, but of course you can use whatever you get that is reasonably heavy that still lets you cast while you're casting Blade Hands. Because as you see here, casting spells become somewhat more difficult, but you get a lot of damage in your unarmed combat, of course, it is actually quite crazy the damage that you get, like the damage increase. This effect obviously causes you to chop off Hydra heads. So it is definitely a spell that I wouldn't recommend for fighting Hydras. But it kind of murders everything else. Not gonna lie, it's a really good spell. It's gonna become a trend for transmutations. I feel like everything level 5 onwards, apart from Alistair's Intoxication, is gonna have like my absolute seal of approval. I don't use this one a lot, however, because whenever I go for transmutations, I will almost always go for statue form or dragon form. Very rarely I will go for storm form, but yeah, we'll get to those in a bit. No need to talk about them when I'm talking about blade hands. But anyway, I guess all that you need to know is that it makes you deal a lot more melee damage with your unarmed combat. So maybe consider training unarmed combat if you want to use blade hands. And also, yeah, it's just good spell. Next on our list, we have Irradiate. So yeah, if you know about me and my streams, you know that I always, without fail, every time that I find Irradiate in a book and I'm a spellcaster, I will get Irradiate. Every time, without fail. This spell is incredible. This spell also has like the highest seal of approval that I can grant, you know, like the highest praise for a spell. It is incredibly good. It deals a ton of damage. It doesn't check evasion. It does check armor class. Back in the day, it didn't used to check armor class, so it was even more insane. But now it checks armor class. It's still pretty good at killing things because it deals large amounts of damage for relatively low spell power required for it to actually deal that much damage. And that makes it like punch through some monsters with heavy armor class, like Orbs of Fire. So yeah, pretty good. Just like amazing spell. Anyway, now let's actually read what it says. Irradiate transmutes an ultra thin layer of the caster's skin or equivalent directly into pure magical energy, blasting adjacent creatures. Heavily deforms its targets, weakening them and reducing their armor. The caster is not left entirely unaffected, some of the magic lingers, enough to leave them dangerously contaminated after a few castings. That is true, that is true. If you have seen my streams or whatever character I'm using Irradiate, you know that I often contaminate myself, and I sometimes get malmutations from doing so. Including one infamous occasion where I was doing Lord of Darkness 3 and I accidentally gave myself Irradiate, or contamination with Irradiate, gave myself the worst mutation in the game, and then died later in the game after completing the goal of Lord of Darkness 3, which is getting 3 runes without entering Lair, Orc, or the Bolts. As a direct result of getting that bad mutation, it was pretty disappointing. Regardless of that, I still hold Irradiate very highly. It's not that dangerous, the contamination thing, because the game actually kind of warns you when you're getting close to the point where you can actually get malmutations from getting contaminated. By changing how the indicator of contamination looks, if it gets brighter, it means that you're gonna be getting closer to getting malmutations. If it gets yellow, that's when you have the chance to get malmutated as it decreases. And then it can go higher than that, but if it goes higher than yellow, you're in very serious trouble, and you're probably gonna die from the damage anyway. So yeah, just don't get it higher than yellow. In fact, don't cast Irradiate if you're at yellow contamination already. Maybe don't cast it if you're at a brighter contamination sign. You know, like it's like a light gray, so it's very noticeable compared to the normal contamination indicator, which is just like almost insignificant. But yeah, anyway, really good spell, as I mentioned earlier. Completely has my seal of approval. Go for it. You will not regret it. It's really strong. It doesn't check evasion, doesn't check shield, so it destroys Spriggans, it destroys monsters with shields. If Menace gives you the chance, you can also use it on Menace and destroy Menace like that. Something important to notate as well is that it also reduces the monster's hit dice when they are affected by like Irradiate's debuff. So that means the monsters have less of a chance to hit you, less of a chance to hex you, and their spells deal less damage. Because all of those things are based around the monster's hit dice, so it is quite a good debuff to have on a monster. Yeah, Irradiate is just fantastic. Just give it a try if you have never used it. Think about giving it a try in your next spellcaster, and you are not gonna be disappointed about it. If you like spells that you just use to destroy things, Irradiate is gonna be for you. Anyway, enough ranting about Irradiate as well. As you saw, this school has a lot of spells that I like quite a bit. Next on our list we have um, we have Yara's. Yara's Violent Unraveling. If cast upon a creature already blessed or cursed with magical enchantments, those enchantments will be torn apart, transforming into a spray of destructive mutagenic radiation. So kind of like Irradiate. The victim and anyone adjacent will be blasted and heavily deformed, weakening them and reducing their armor. Summon creatures are particularly vulnerable, as the enchantments binding them to this plane will unravel and cause them to be dismissed immediately. So you may remember this effect at the very end from way back in the day. There used to be a spell called Abjuration that kind of just like got rid of summons like this. This is a new effect that Yara's Violent Unraveling got in 0.28, I think. I've never used this spell before. It's not something that I will actively look forward to getting, but it can be pretty strong. Like how many times you've been standing next to like a hasted mighty deep troll, just like terrified for your life, despite the fact that you're a high HP, because you cannot run away from that thing, and it deals obscene amounts of damage thanks to the might. Yara's Violence Unraveling will make it so that you don't have to be afraid of that dude. So it also debuffs the monsters in a similar way to Irradiate. So not only does it remove the buffs, but it also just like debuffs the monster actually. It removes the buff and debuffs the monster. I don't know if you can use this on yourself. I would be surprised if you could. But yeah, as I mentioned, I haven't tried this new iteration of Yara's Violent Unraveling because it didn't used to be. It didn't used to destroy the summons, so I have not tried that. I have not had characters that have had access to the spell and actually like the need to use it. I feel like more often than not, it is probably just for the best to cast Irradiate and actually kill the monsters instead of jumping through hoops in order to kill the monster. But that's just how I play. It's just my playstyle. So I don't know enough about this game I'm sorry, I don't know enough about this spell to give a guaranteed seal of approval. But I have not a negative outlook of the spell like some other spells in this game. So yeah, more research has to be made in regards to this one spell. You should give it a try if what the spell does sounds interesting or useful to you, and let me know in the comments if you like it or not. Yeah, that would be helpful. I know for sure that I'm gonna think about giving this a try the next time I find it on a character that can actually make use of it. But anyway, next on our list we have. Are we getting to? I think we are getting to. Oh boy, this is like one of my favorite spells in the school. But what is it called? Because it's not in the list, but I know that it exists. Yeah, Eringya's Noxious Bog. Incredible spell. Causes the caster to release a torrent of sludge that transforms nearby areas into a toxic bog. The sludge damages and poisons all monsters, even those resistant to poison. The bog cannot form on areas adjacent to multiple solid features, nor on areas that lack solid floor, like deep water or lava. The transformation is temporary and cannot be sustained out of the caster's sight. Spell power will increase how long the bog lingers. This spell is incredibly powerful. It's a level 6 dual school spell, so it better be incredibly powerful. It destroys anything that doesn't fly that is not immune to poison. Um, because monsters that can fly over the toxic bog, of course, don't get damaged by it. Um, and monsters that are immune to poison still take damage from the toxic bug. It doesn't deal as much damage to those monsters, of course, because those monsters don't get affected by the poison part of the effect. But it still deals a bit of damage to them. Still, I think makes them fumble their attacks. This toxic bug thing that you generate with this spell can even make giants like juggernauts fumble attacks. So it is quite special in that way. It makes monsters slower because it just makes them walk through like shallow water. Whenever you or a monster walks through shallow water, makes you or the monster slow. And this is kind of like shallow water with special properties that deal a lot of damage. So yeah, it's a fantastic spell. It's incredible if you have Ignite Poison. I think the reason why I often go for poison spells whenever I'm using transmutations is because, ignite poison exists. And if you have the skill to cast something like statue form, you also have the skill to cast something like Noxious Bog. Kind of. You just need to push a bit of poison, which I may have already done by the time I find this spell later in the game, because Toxic Radiance, Ignite Poison, Poisonous Vapors, there's enough reasons in the game to actually train poison magic. So yeah, this is just like the pinnacle of that. Really, really powerful spell. If you have never used it, I would recommend you to do so. You probably need something along the lines of Irradiate to deal with flying monsters. But this destroys Hydras, this destroys Merfolk, this destroys Slimes. Every monster in Slime gets absolutely dumpstered by this. This spell with Ignite Poison is so good for dealing with the Royal Jelly. It is really good. It makes for really clean kills of the Royal Jelly. You kill the Royal Jelly and its entire entourage in like 10 turns with very little danger to your integrity, given that you play it properly and don't just like Leroy Jenkins it, of course. But that's pretty much the case for everything in this game. Do not Leroy Jenkins in this game because it's gonna get you killed. Anyway, I feel like yet again I've already praised Spell in this list a lot, so let's go for the next one, which is Statue Form. Statue Form transforms the caster into a slow but extremely robust stone statue. The caster's melee damage, both unarmed and with weapons, is substantially increased. The caster's stone body is immune to poison and miasma, and gains resistance to electricity and negative energy. High power increases the armor granted by this form. While transformed and equipped, body armor, gloves, and boots all melted. I've also already talked about this spell when I did the Earth Magic overview. So there's going to be a bit of overlap, of course, between all the schools because multiple spells in the same school is just how it is. Or rather, multiple schools in the same spell. That's what I meant. So yeah, I have nothing but praise for this spell. It's really, really good. Gives you decent offensive capabilities and incredible defensive capabilities. This spell destroys Glorksblock. Destroys Glorksblock, as I mentioned in the Earth Magic overview. Really, really good spell, just like in general. You have to be very afraid of some monsters when you're using it, because since it gives you large amounts of defenses and resistances, if you happen to be fighting against something that can debuff you, or that can remove all your buffs, like Purple Draconian or Quicksilver Dragon, you can be in some serious trouble. Quicksilver Elementals, I think, can also do it, and this Serpent of Hell, I'm pretty sure, can also do the whole removing your buffs thing. So yeah, statue form is really, really good. I feel like I shouldn't praise it anymore because I probably already did a lot in the Earth Magic spell in the Earth Magic video. So yeah, just go check that one out if you want to hear more about how much love I have for statue form. Next on our list, we are gonna have Dragon Form. Dragon Form is really good. Yeah, Dragon Form transforms the caster into a mighty, far-breathing dragon. The caster becomes highly resistant to fire and resistant to poison, but weak to cold. The caster becomes able to deal incredible damage in melee combat, and they become much more robust, although their evasiveness is reduced. While transform, any equipped weapons and armor all melted. So, this Dragon Form spell gives you 50% more HP. It gives you more strength. I think it gives you like 10, but I'm not sure if it actually gives you 10 strength. And it also gives you obscene base damage in your unarmed combat. It is so high. It's insane. It's like 38 base damage plus your unarmed combat skill. Because as the way that unarmed combat works is that every level in unarmed combat increases the base damage of your unarmed combat by 1. So when you get to 27 unarmed combat, you have the 3 base damage from your fists plus the 27 of your unarmed combat, which is a total of 30 base damage. Sorry for that. Which then gets increased and multiplied by some weird, obscure, arcane formulas that we do not really know about unless you dive into the source code, which involve your skill in the weapon, which you already have at 27, by the way, because 27 on armed combat, your skill in fighting, and your strength. So that is. That's a lot of damage already without Dragon Form. With Dragon Form, instead of having 30 base damage, when you have 27 in armed combat, you have the 38 base damage plus the 27. That's so much damage. It's actually insane how much damage it deals. Yeah, it's like 65 base damage, which then gets multiplied like crazy. Really strong form. This form doesn't really care that much about the spell power, which is pretty good. It means that as long as you can cast it, you can make use of it. Like you're using it at its maximum effectiveness if you're able to cast it. Period. This spell with Manifold Assault, which is a translocations spell, I might have to do that one next week. It's just priceless. It is equivalent, if not more powerful than level 9 spells. Yeah, and it's cheaper as well. And it also leaves you able to, just staff very well if you run out of mana for some reason or another. So Dragon Form is just priceless. It's a really good spell. Not much else to say about it. You can even use it defensively because it gives you 50% more HP. It does melt your entire gear except for your jewelry, so you might have to find a way to compensate for the weakness to cold and the lack of resistances other than fire and poison resistance when you're using this, if you want to use it the way that I would normally use a statue form. So yeah, it's something you have to think about. On the other hand, this gives you such incredible damage output that you can probably just use it and kill whatever you're afraid of in 3 turns, resistances or no resistances, as long as you don't have the weakness to cold, of course, because if you have the weakness to cold, you can reasonably die in like 3 or 4 turns yourself, depending on which monsters you're fighting against. Anyway, this spell is so good that you can get it castable without unarmed combat and still like be able to kill things in melee. Usually when I go for Dragon Form Manifold Assault, the way I train the skills is first Dragon Form, and then start casting Dragon Form to kill things, and then Manifold Assault, and then start casting Dragon Form Manifold Assault, and last Unarmed Combat, because the spell is good enough to kill whatever thing you're fighting in the mid game without Unarmed Combat. And then Unarmed Combat just increases the effectiveness at the speed at which you're killing things in the late game. So yeah, I get them in that order for that reason. Because the spell is already just good enough even without unarmed combat, but I do recommend you to get more unarmed combat if you're going to be using this spell. Fantastic, priceless, incredible. Very high praise. I love transmutations. Why are transmutations spells so good? Some of them, like the early game of the transmutations spells, is not that amazing, but later on it gets pretty crazy. Talking about pretty crazy, next on our list we have Stormform. Lets the caster walk through the air as a raging lightning-filled tempest. The caster's melee attacks are straightened, electrified, and strike all adjacent foes. The caster also flies, is more evasive, gains immunity to poison and miasma, and resists electricity. They can launch themselves as a lightning bolt, blasting through everything in their way. The damage and evasion granted by Stormform are highly dependent on the power with which it was cast. Well transformed, any equipped weapons and armor are melded. This is potentially the strongest transmutation in the game. Can be potentially way more powerful than Dragon Form. Um, it does not give you any extra HP, and the armor class that it gives is okay. It gives incredible evasion, of course. It actually does get pretty crazy with the evasion. You can easily get like 50 plus evasion when using Stormform. But I don't really care too much about evasion because you're still gonna get hit when you need to not get hit. Um, what I do like about Stormform is the massive damage output that it has. The damage is also like it's even more obscure than the damage in Dragon Form because the damage in Dragon Form is just a set number. The damage in Storm Form scales with spell power, but I've heard that around 40% it starts performing around the same as Dragon Form, and then everything from there is just more power than Dragon Form. This takes into account the brand, so I think it's like 50-ish percent for it to start dealing as much base damage as Dragon Form does, regardless of your unarmed combat. So yeah, really good spell as well. I don't really go for this one that often because this one is much more spell power dependent than Dragon Form. So whenever I use this, is because I also have something crazy like MCC or Chain Lightning, and so I already have incredible amounts of air magic. Might as well just couple it with Storm Form, so I have really strong melee alongside my really strong spell casting. That's obviously a lot of experience, and so it is more often an extended build instead of a 3-room build, just because there's not enough experience to really make the most out of Stormform in a 3-room game or a 4-room game, or everything that's not Hell or Pandemonium or Tomb. Um, yeah, Stormform, really, really good. Also, like the Blink Bolt ability is fantastic. You can use it in so many ways. It allows for a lot of like creativity in the way that you approach fights. You can just like be Onga Bonga and just Blink Bolt next to whatever is scary that just appeared on the screen, and you just explode it. Or you can also use it while you're retreating into a monster that is flanking you, so you just like blink bolt into the monster that is in the opposite direction of whatever was scary, and you just destroy the monster, and you just keep running, and you gain a bunch of tiles. It's a really, really good ability. It also deals a ton of damage. So yeah, blink bolt is a really good part of using Stormform. Mm, quite good indeed. Anyway, next on our list, and I think it's the final Transmutations spell, we have Mummy Form. Um, Sorry for that spell. Necromutation. Transforms the caster into a lich, a powerful skeletal figure. The caster becomes a stronger willed, more resistant to cold, and completely immune to poison, miasma, negative energy, and torment for the duration of the spell. The caster's necromancy spells are increased in power, and they gain a draining melee attack. The caster also gains some of the most dubious benefits of having an undead form, such as a weakness to holy damage and dispel undead, and an inability to consume potions. Also, obviously, the Shining One and its bodies will very much not like it if you want to cast this, and you will become immediately excommunicated, in case it wasn't obvious enough, because you're transforming into a lich. So yeah, I like to call this mummy form because it pretty much gives you all the upsides and all the downsides of being a mummy, apart from the aptitudes. Yeah, you don't get access to potions, you get more willpower, you get You get necromancy enhancement. Yeah, it's like being a mummy. It can be a very scary thing to use. Generally, I like to get this for tomb and only for tomb. Um, I guess if you're doing multiple cigarettes in the same character, you can also get mummy form, necromutation, for mummy floors specifically. Mm, so yeah, it's a really good spell, but it's not an offensive spell. Unlike storm form and dragon form and statue form, it is a utility spell. At the end of the day, very expensive utility spell, but also very strong utility spell. In my opinion, a staple for going into Tomb. It doesn't matter if you don't have any transmutations or necromancy skill. You probably should have some transmutations skill if you want to go into extended. By the way, for statue form. Um, you should get some regardless, so you can go into Tomb and have access to mummy form, and so you are well, not completely immune, but like mostly immune to that curses, which are a big source of damage in Tomb. Every mummy has torment and smite, like the ones that actually matter have torment and smite, and almost all of them give you strong retaliatory death curses whenever you kill them. So being in mummy form is quite important for being able to survive that branch. You can do it without mummy form, but it is highly recommended. You will notice the difference if you try to do it without mummy form, and then if you try to do it with mummy form. It's just a big quality of life improvement. But this spell is also part of the reason why when I go and do extended, I don't do it with melee characters more often than not. I do it with spellcasters because spellcasters are just better suited for extended in my opinion. They get access to strong level 9 spells that hit the entirety of the screen and just kill everything. They also get access to things like this and statue form for dealing with tormentors. Yeah, spellcasters are just so much better for extended than melee characters. So much better, period, I guess, than melee characters. But yeah, anyway, you can also melee in mummy form, but I don't think it increases your damage like significantly. As I mentioned already, it's a utility spell. You get draining melee, which is kind of okay. You can get claws drain if you cast mummy form as a troll or as a demon spawn with claws 3. Funny thing that will very rarely happen, but it can certainly happen. So yeah, that's mummy form. Really good, but not much else to say about it. With that being said, this spell school has so many spells. It has quite a lot of spells actually, most of which are really good and I approve of, and I've used actually in my runs. So you can see that it's not only me talking about the spell and praising it. I have like solid evidence that I use those spells, and I'm always happy whenever I'm using them, most of them. So yeah, that's transmutations. No level 9 spell on transmutations because transmutations is not it's not like that. Not all schools have a level 9 spell. Anyway, I guess thank you for watching this overview, and thank you for hanging out in the stream if you do so. If you enjoyed what I just made for you, you could consider following on YouTube and on Twitch as well. And if you really want to, you can subscribe on Twitch. You don't have to, but I appreciate it a lot if you choose to do so. Yeah, yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I'll be back next week for more, for another overview. I take requests, so if you get to this point and you're like willing to leave a comment, you can ask for one, and I will most likely do it. Yeah, yeah, anyway, eventually I'll tackle every spell school, but I will do it in whatever order is dictated to me by the people that actually watch the videos, because those are the people that I'm making the content for. Anyway, yeah, not much else to say. See you around, and do consider checking out my stream. I stream a lot, 5 days a week, about 20 hours per week. And I play a lot of crawl in those 20 hours, almost the entirety of it is crawl actually. Anyway, see you around.